The cryptocurrency market is worth over $3 trillion today, while just 15 years ago it didn't even exist, so it was worth $0. Most newcomers don't realize just how vast the space has become and that there are all types of different cryptocurrencies that serve different purposes. Not all cryptos are made equally. So in the next few minutes, I'll go over the 9 biggest sectors in crypto so that the next time you're faced looking at a bunch of different currencies, you can easily differentiate what type of crypto they really are under the hood. As I say, when newcomers get introduced, they are usually unaware of just how versatile the technology is. The first time you come across a website like CoinMarketCap, here we go, we're going to check it out, like this, you're given tons of different currencies and it's hard to know what is what. You know, if you've never heard of a stablecoin, how can you even know that, USDT and USDC are intended to be around the $1 price, right? That this is intentional. Both CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko, which is another very famous and well-used site that shows all these different currencies, do actually help people by offering a categories tab. So if you click on categories here, you can see all sorts of different categories. But I mean, if you're not already fully immersed in the space, it's very hard to interpret these categories, right? As a newcomer, how do you even know what rehypothecated crypto could possibly mean, right? And how is it even relevant to you? And what are these ecosystems like? It's not clear for newcomers. It's just a lot of different terms, right? Now, the categories are very diverse and show all sorts of different things. Sometimes they have, like we saw there, ecosystems. Sometimes they show funds. But before you can understand any of this, you really need to understand the broader subsectors, the broader sectors in crypto that the space currently has, of which there aren't really that many. So below, as I said at the top, we'll go through the 9 main ones. Note that we're mainly looking at the fungible side of crypto here. Most of these sectors overlap with non-fungibles as well, but there are other things that can be done with non-fungibles that aren't covered here. Right. Now, if you want to set up your first crypto wallet so you can take part in the growing global crypto economy, plus access over $1,900 worth of courses entirely for free, then click the link in the description below. So the first sector is just Bitcoin. Bitcoin really sits on a league of its own. Bitcoin recently hit 100K and has a market capitalization of just below $2 trillion, right? It currently represents around 56% of the entire crypto market, market's capitalization of over 3 trillion. And we have this concept of Bitcoin dominance, which represents this. Bitcoin is 56% of the entire market today. This fluctuates, you can see over time it's fluctuated, but it's always stayed very, very high. Bitcoin is the oldest and most important cryptocurrency. It's compared to digital gold, which I've written articles about before, and is practically a sector in of itself. It's got lots of different developers and people involved in it. And importantly, its price movements shift the entire market along with it, and there's nothing to suggest in the short run at least, or the medium term, that this will change anytime soon. I personally liken Bitcoin to like the sun in the solar system, because every other crypto ecosystem and crypto coin in the space is somewhat affected by its gravity. A good year for Bitcoin will usually be a good year for crypto, and inversely, a bad year for Bitcoin is usually a bad year for the majority of the space. Right? So that's number 1. Number 2, layer 1s. This is the second largest sector by market cap at around $800 million according to CoinMarketCap, or about 25% of the entire space. These are alternative blockchains to Bitcoin, where the coin itself, the crypto itself, has some utility beyond the basic monetary value proposition of Bitcoin, as they all offer some version of smart contract capabilities where you can program code and write it onto the chain, right? So L1s include the likes of if we go here and we type layer 1, we'll see they include the likes of Ethereum, Solana, Tron, Toncoin, Sui, all sorts of blockchains, right? And like I said before, the programmability on top of these blockchains mean that an ecosystem of apps and developers actually form around them, right? The very first L1 as such with this kind of programmability was Ethereum itself, which is probably why it still holds the most market share. But there's ever tougher competition from the likes of Solana and newer blockchains like Sui that have been growing fast. These coins are generally high in market cap because they get used as fuel for the services that live on top of them. For example, if you want to interact with any smart contract on the Ethereum blockchain, you need ETH to make that transaction happen. And same goes with Solana, you need Sol, etc. So they're the second largest category by market cap. The third is stablecoins. Stablecoins have emerged as one of the most important sectors of the crypto space, accounting for over $200 million or 6% of the space approximately at the moment. And I've written a lot about them before. And even there's made a video about Tether, which is the most important company in this space. Stablecoins attempt to maintain a one-to-one peg with some underlying asset like a fiat currency such as the US dollar or pound, although a stablecoin can be pegged to any other low volatility assets like gold, which Tether also does. Nonetheless, stablecoins pegged to the US dollar account for practically 99% of all stablecoins, which just shows how dominant the US dollar is around the world. And Tether leads the race, accounting for about 65% of the entire market. If we go back to the categories here, we can easily find stablecoins. Here. So, as you can tell, stablecoin is a pretty important sector. Now, the next is DeFi. Click here, we can see it. DeFi is honestly where a lot of the interesting magic happens within crypto. It's personally one of my favorite spaces. The tokens here usually represent governance rights in some underlying DeFi protocol like Uniswap or Aave, and accounts, and according to CoinMarketCap, are around 150 million, meaning they represent around 4% of the market. These numbers aren't perfect. The way that they make these categories, for example, Avalanche being included in as a DeFi protocol is, it can be questioned, right? But most DeFi protocol and DeFi tokens, like Uniswap and Aave, it's not always clear why there is a token. If you hold Uniswap or Aave, in principle that gives you voting rights for the underlying protocols. However, in practice, you don't tend to have participation in the more meaningful decision making in the protocol, and in the cases where they have given real voting rights to users, it's often led to conflict with the overarching vision of the team. This happened recently with Compound, for example. So DeFi is a fascinating sector. It could one day change the entire global financial system. We could shift from using traditional financial players to DeFi protocols for a lot of what we do. But that doesn't mean the tokens today are particularly valuable or interesting. Although it also doesn't mean that they couldn't be in the future incredibly important and valuable. So it's an important one to pay attention. The next sector is meme coins. So if we go back here, we can see memes coming up here, right? Now, while DeFi tokens often lack meaningful utility, but are tied to a genuinely meaningful protocol that's doing something really incredible, meme coins are the opposite. Meme coins almost always purposefully lack any utility. They are intended to not have utility and intended primarily as a vehicle for speculation. Meme coins are the closest thing we have to pure gambling in crypto, but they are fueled by attention. The more attention a meme has, the more likely its meme coin will do well, with people finding out about it and buying it. which is a real reflection of the attention economy we live in today, right? Dogecoin is the original meme coin. It's actually a Bitcoin clone similar to older Bitcoin clones like Litecoin, but it's literally outgrown Litecoin just because people like the meme. They like the Doge meme, especially with Musk, who's regularly posted about Doge and now is even going to name a US government agency Doge, right? So the attention is what fuels meme coins more than anything, right? With the help of apps like Pump Fun, the meme coin sector has become one of the most explosive, had the most explosive growth this past year, and seems to be leading the charge in this new crypto summer that we're currently experiencing. Nowadays new meme coins are created every single second with things like Pump Fun, with Solana having become the hub for most of this activity, and new memes rising and falling incredibly fast and dynamically. Just last week, we had a meme coin called Fartcoin, created by an AI, hit a $1 billion valuation before dropping back, and now it's climbing back up again, right? So meme coins are another key sector. The next to think about is layer 2s. We have layer 2s here, right? Layer 1 blockchains are the second largest category of cryptocurrency by market cap, as we discussed earlier on. However, the more L1s have grown in use, the tougher it has become for them to scale. And so L2s, layer 2s, have appeared as a potential solution to the scaling problem. And most L2s that have been born have created their own governance tokens, similar to DeFi, right? So in the same vein, they struggle with a similar problem to DeFi tokens, in that there's often no real value in holding, or limited value in holding their governance token. If you hold Arbitrum or Optimism tokens, which are some of the largest L2s in the Ethereum ecosystem, they practically give you no important say in the important decisions within the L2 ecosystem. They're building their own ways of working regardless of the people holding the cryptocurrencies, right? So L2s are still an incredibly important and growing space. We're seeing huge companies like Deutsche Bank and Sony creating their own L2s. So it's likely that these tokens will over time become even more important, but they suffer from a similar thing to DeFi. You can see that there's a growing path for both, and they could become huge, but it's not entirely clear how owning the crypto represents that for the holders. Now, the next sector I'd like to discuss is AI. So AI represents probably one of the newest and fastest growing sectors in the space. Ever since ChatGPT appeared on the scene only 2 years ago, it might be crazy to think there's only been 2 years since ChatGPT was created, we've seen a massive boom in AI, and this growth has been mirrored in AI tokens in the crypto space. So if we go here, we get this one, AI and big data, right? Now, the most interesting players in this sector were literally created only a few months back, right? We've seen the Virtuals ecosystem leading the charge here. But Virtuals is essentially both a token launchpad, and it has this way of connecting an AI agent creation tool. So all AI agents created through Virtuals have a token that represent them. But you need the virtual token to buy these tokens, which is why Virtuals has exploded so much. And these AI agents are often hooked up with the likes of Twitter or X or Telegram, and they post there and interact with people, and they can launch their own coins, right? So the biggest story on this front, well, the first big story that kind of blew up here was Truth Terminal, which wasn't actually from Virtuals, but it inspired the creation of Virtuals. It became the first AI millionaire through, incentivize people online to create a meme coin called GOAT. They sent GOAT to its wallet, and it, people started buying a lot of GOAT, and GOAT being a meme coin, right? It got all this attention, and the price went up, and the AI ended up having millions of dollars worth of GOAT, right? It's pretty incredible. The AI sector is still very nascent. ChatGPT, etc., are only 2 years old, but it has the potential to be one of the most important and impactful sectors in crypto. You know, as AI agents grow, they can take part in global trade, and through crypto, they don't need traditional bank accounts. They can actually influence, decision making of real humans and other AIs, right? So it's a pretty crazy thought for us today, but a decade from now, it might be normal to see AIs interacting online and affecting the economy, right? And so this is likely a very big space to pay attention to, and a growing crypto sector. Now, gaming is another area where crypto can and will certainly shine, as it allows in-game currencies to trade through crypto's global financial markets. However, we've yet to see any of these really take off yet. This is a relatively small crypto sector still, currently, right? In the last crypto summer, we had a lot of talk about gaming being a big thing, but it takes a long time to make good games. And many gamers initially rejected the notion of having cryptocurrencies or NFTs in mainstream games. So this sector has been a bit of a slow burner. The best we've gotten out, probably the best we've gotten out so far, is Axie Infinity with their NFTs and their own Ronin chain and Ronin token. And we saw a bunch of metaverse-like gaming experiences such as Sandbox and Decentraland with their tokens in the last crypto summer, but these are still pretty early, right? I'm personally starting to believe that we might finally be getting to see some real growth in this sector, since we now have some genuinely good Web3 native games becoming available. Illuvium is a good example of a game that after years of development has finally become a truly fun game to play, and there's plenty of videos online of Illuvium, right? And that's just one example. When this sector really takes off, we could see all sorts of in-game economies spill out into the real world and generate some incredibly large token valuations. And I really think this is a sector to watch out for, but it has been a slow burner, and it isn't today one of the most relevant sectors yet. And a similar thought here is the real-world asset sector, which is the 9th sector that I'm covering in this video. The real-world asset sector is still relatively small, with very few protocols that specifically focus on this. The single largest one by market capitalization is Ondo, and it's got an over $2 billion valuation. However, I personally believe this sector has the potential to be literally one of the largest, if not the single largest crypto sector of them all, right? So the basic premise behind real-world assets is about tokenizing financial assets of the real world. You can imagine stock markets, bond markets, real estate, all of these multi-trillion markets eventually being brought onto blockchains through tokenization. Although Ondo today carries the highest valuation, in practice it's still mainly just doing stablecoin stuff, as stablecoins kind of straddle the line between being their own sector and being part of like real world assets, right? Because you're bringing real world assets such as a dollar onto a crypto network, on-chain. The closest thing I've seen to RWAs were the likes of synthetic assets that were common on Synthetix and Mirror. So you could, for example, provide you with Apple shares. You could buy Apple shares through what they called an M8 Apple, right? So Mirror provided this. You can see here in this image. Had M Apple, Airbnb, AMD, Amazon, etc. Right? And they had these one-to-one mappings of the share under the hood. This was kind of the early stages of RWAs, but that died. Both Synthetix and Mirror have kind of shifted and become different things, and it's probably because behind the scenes, regulators and large financial institutions weren't getting involved, and they probably put the pressure on. That's speculation on my part, but it's hard to imagine why else they would have stopped growing, right? But now with players like BlackRock, which is the largest asset manager in the world, creating their own RWA fund called BUIDL, we can definitely imagine that RWAs will grow. And as I say, I think this could literally be the biggest sector in the future, perhaps even bigger than L1s, and who knows, perhaps bigger than Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is one asset. This is the process of bringing all of the world's assets on chain, all of the traditional financial assets on chain. So this is a huge sector to pay attention to, even though today it's still very small and it doesn't represent much. And those were the 9 main crypto sectors that I wanted to cover today, right? So we've covered Bitcoin, layer 1s. Let's go through them real quick. Bitcoin, layer 1s, stable coins, DeFi, meme coins, layer 2s, AI, gaming, and real world assets, right? Those are kind of the biggest crypto sectors today. I've covered a lot of them, but there's still plenty more I haven't mentioned. There's one example is a growing sector called DePIN, which stands for Decentralized Physical Infrastructure, and that's been growing massively with the likes of Helium, who essentially allow you to turn any device into a 5G hotspot that earns you crypto, right? So there's lots of sectors, lots of ways to dice the space up. We could talk about privacy coins, oracles, decentralized storage, identification, interoperability, centralized exchange tokens, wrapped assets, which is what I mentioned right at the top about rehypothecated cryptos, different L1 ecosystem, funds, and more. Nonetheless, the 9 that I covered in this video are probably the biggest ones to pay attention to and that have the most mind share, right? As you can see, the crypto market is vast and growing exponentially. Plus, there'll be certainly more sectors and use cases we can't even imagine in the coming years, right? AI and DePIN, for example, weren't things we were talking about 4 years ago. AI exploded massively with ChatGPT, which is only 2 years old, and DePIN wasn't really an obvious proposition before we saw the likes of Helium, right? Nonetheless, the sectors I've mentioned, the 9 sectors I mentioned above, encapsulate the largest ones today as a proportion of market share and mind share, and show promise to grow very large in the not so distant future. The Milk Road even drew this handy little kind of thing which covers most of them. It doesn't have RWAs here, but you can see how Bitcoin is the majority of the market. L1s are the second one, then the stablecoins, DeFi, meme coins, AI, L2s, and gaming. I can't vouch for their predictions for 2025. They're very bullish predictions. It does feel like 2025 is going to be a very bullish year. But you can see visually just how these different sectors represent different sizes of the space, right? And it's pretty nice. It's pretty nice to kind of have this visual idea. So I hope this has helped you understand and have an overarching idea of the entire space, and it's made it a little bit clearer. So next time you come across a crypto, you can kind of see, oh, okay, that might be the reason for the existence of this crypto. You can kind of put it in these bigger umbrella sectors. And as I said earlier on, if you want to set up your first crypto wallet so you can take part in this growing global crypto economy, plus access over $1,900 worth of courses entirely for free, then click the link in the description below, and I'll see you there.